All right, and as promised, it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Thank you for everybody who was able to join us, and we'll do introductions in just a minute. But this is our first of our Virginia DC First LEGO League webinar series. I know there's lots of questions about the upcoming season, and we're hoping to tackle some of them, but we know that there will always be more. So we're really excited to be able to launch this series as a way to help any coaches, teachers, parents, hoping to get started and have a successful season. So today's webinar is going to be focused on a couple of things. First, we'll do introductions and a couple housekeeping points. Then we're going to review the season overview with a few COVID-19 updates, and we'll talk more about that, but there will be follow-up sessions because we won't have all the answers today, but hopefully we can get their creative juices flowing as to how they're going to tackle this season. Then we'll talk about funding a First LEGO League team. Teams are funded in lots of different ways, and we hope to give you lots of great ideas as to how you might be able to fund your team. And then we're going to take a quick look at first national registration. If you're a veteran coach, you may have gone through this or seen it, but it's always a great refresher. And if you're a new coach, this will be helpful to know what steps you need to take to get your season materials and your official team number and all the great things that come with that. And then at the end, we will follow up with how to register for one of our events through Virginia DC First LEGO League and what that registration system looks like. Introductions. I am Caitlin Olnitsky. I am the Assistant Director of Virginia DC First LEGO League, located up here at James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And joining me on the call will be Christian Jones. She's actually going to be monitoring the question bank. She is our marketing and media person. She used to have my role before this, so she's very knowledgeable. And before I even got into this position, I also was a teacher and a coach. So a lot of these slides I've created kind of using my own background and some things I wish I would have known getting into the season because I just didn't know them. So a couple of housekeeping notes. This session will be recorded and it will be posted to our sites along with all the slides. So throughout the webinar, you will see a lot of links to slides. After we've been able to get the recording up on our YouTube channel, I will then go ahead and send out the recording as well as the slides. So if there's any links that you're looking for, any resources you're looking for, they'll all be attached within the presentation, and you'll be able to have everything right at your fingertips. Please post any questions or comments in the question box. We will be taking breaks throughout the webinar to address those. So we'll present a chunk of information, stop to take some questions, another chunk of information, stop for questions, to make sure that we can kind of tackle some of the things that, might be going through your head. And for the respect of everyone's time, we do want to be able to wrap up by 8 p.m. tonight. So we may not be able to answer every question, but we will post the questions and answers at the end. And if we weren't able to specifically address your question, we'll be able to follow up afterwards as well. So please just post those questions in there because we know that there's going to be a lot and everybody's situation is different. And so getting that feedback from you will be really, really helpful as we plan the season. So as we sent out the webinar invitation, we also asked people for questions or comments, things that they might be looking for. So just to give you some feedback, here are some of the questions the community was looking for answers for. Many of those questions we will answer tonight. Some of those questions we won't be able to dig in as deep, and we have webinars coming up in the future that we hope to address them. So the number one question on everybody's mind was safety during COVID-19. How will we be able to run our teams? How can we do it safely? Is this worth it? So tonight we'll take a high-level look at it. I am going to give you some nitty-gritty details as well. I wasn't planning to do this on this webinar, but it seems like a lot of people really want to start thinking about what their team is going to look like. So I'm going to show a couple of things tonight, but please know we have some August webinars coming up that will do a deeper dive. Especially at this point, the challenge has not been released. So being able to look at the challenge and really giving teams the resources to tackle that will be important. So those August webinars coming up will really give a deep dive into how to effectively manage your team during this pandemic. And again, we had just managing the team during COVID-19. So we'll have some safety tips, but we'll also present a few tips on how to manage your team. Again, tonight we'll take a pretty high-level overview just to get some conversations started. But then in August, we'll take a deeper dive into what does project look like, what does robot game look like. And if you're new to First LEGO League, I promise we'll talk about what a few of those things are. Some people asked about virtual meetings, and again, we will give some high-level feedback, and then in August, we'll really start to lay out those resources once we know what the season challenge is and all the details in that. A lot of people asked just about robot programming in general. So we do have a webinar early in September in which we're hoping to bring on some expert First LEGO League teams and direct you guys towards, other resources that really might help, regardless of COVID-19, help your team's robot game. So that is another webinar to look forward to. We always ask for your feedback, comments, questions, concerns. So when I send out this presentation later, you'll be able to find a Google form link to this slide. And again, this is going to be a form that I take to my key volunteers, to my regional planning team, as we unpack what this season is going to look like and all the changes that are going to need to happen in order to deal with COVID-19. So to get started, I know I have a few new people on the call. It's their first time coaching. They're really excited about it. And so just to give just a really quick overview, First LEGO League Challenge, formerly called First LEGO League, is a STEAM-based learning opportunity for students ages 9 through 14 or grades 4 through 8. If you have questions about that, you can always reach out to us, but we'll talk about that more on another webinar. Teams receive a new season challenge that tackles a real-world problem, and it's within two parts. The robot game, which is what you see pictured here. You use a Lego-based robot in order to be able to complete certain missions that you'll have through the challenge set. Teams also work on an innovation project that is closely related to the season theme. Again, this tackles a real-world issue, a real-world problem, and changes every year, and there's a lot of great work that teams can do. And then all of this happens, teamwork and the competition are guided by our first core values. So we work together as a team, we honor each other's differences, we celebrate our wins and failures, and all the things that come along with working with a team throughout a season. So that was just a quick overview. To those of you who are veteran coaches, this season overview will look familiar. And again, we'll start to talk about some of the COVID-19 changes coming up. But if you're new, May through the October time period, you're gathering your team. You're looking for your 2 adult coaches. You're looking for 2 to 10 team members. You do need to have at least 2 members on a team. I know that can be challenging with COVID-19, but we're really looking for innovative ways that we can address that. And hopefully after you leave this webinar, you do see some of those. When you register with First, you receive your official team number, which allows you to compete in our events. You receive team meeting notebooks, which are down here. You receive engineering notebooks. And then a new thing that they're putting out this year is also the robot game rulebook. In the past, this was built into these other documents and resources, but now they've got it on its own. And as you can see here, this is what the robot game mat looks like for this season. Our season is the replay season. The details of the challenge haven't been announced, but we're really excited to see it has something to do with activity and being outdoors and imagining what that could be. Over here, you will see our 2 robots that can be used in the season. There is the EV3 Mindstorm and the Spike Prime. I'll talk about this a little bit later on, but I do just want to clear up here. One robot is not meant to replace the other, and I'll talk about that on some future slides, but these are just some of the materials that you will need in order to get started. And you'll also, obviously, through this time, order these season materials. The season challenge kit, which you see in the notebooks and the robot game, that changes every season. But once you buy your robot, that can be reused from season to season. The challenge release will be August 4th. We, as a region, have decided to push our competition season back, which I'll talk about. But the challenge release will be in a week from today. And if you go to the First website, you can request to receive a notification. They'll be putting out the season challenge on Twitch TV next Tuesday, August 4th. If you can't be there, it's okay. We'll be posting it to our social media site as well, Facebook and Instagram. but really excited about that challenge release coming out on August 4th. So a couple of updates here on coaching during COVID. We know and completely understand that this season is going to present challenges that we didn't have in the past. We are confident as a staff and volunteer pool that we can deliver a quality and innovative STEM experience for students across Virginia and Washington, D.C. This may look different than other seasons, but we are determined to be able to support our coaches, support our teams, and deliver quality events to you in a way that's going to keep everybody safe. So every team, it's really important to understand they function differently. So the possibilities for innovation are endless here because every team is going to have different challenges, different opportunities. And so hopefully throughout this webinar and future webinars, you're going to be able to see a multitude of resources for you to be able to check out and find the best fit for your team. At the same time, coaches and teams and parents really do need to be having honest conversations about what challenges and opportunities they are facing. We are in a really big region, Virginia and DC. Some areas are being impacted by COVID-19 more than others. So it's important to know that what's happening with your school system, what's happening with the spread of COVID in your area. So this is a great time over the summer while some things still remain to be unseen. Start having those honest and crucial conversations with the stakeholders, your parents, your coaches, about what can we do and what's going to be an issue. And I do encourage you to reach out to us with issues because we might have not seen something. We might be seeing some innovation happen in another part of the state, and we might be able to give you ideas. So please keep checking in with us along the way. Our questions email is the best way to do that, and then we'll constantly be sending emails to registered coaches asking for their feedback, trying to figure out what's going on with their team because we know that there's a lot ahead of us. So some COVID-19 updates that I can share with you. Virginia DC First LEGO League has decided to push our competition season back to mid-January through mid-February. Normally we run our events in the month of November, but looking at how many schools are delaying their start or moving to all virtual learning, we know that teams need more time to prepare. What this does for teams right now is it gives them a little bit more time right now to readjust their plans and to kind of restructure things and rethink things. If the season was going to happen in November, you kind of have to hit the ground running. So hopefully by pushing the season back, we're giving our teams time to respond to the changes they're going to have to make. We're also giving our volunteers and our event leaders time to make the adjustments to deliver safe events. I know this is a big question on everybody's mind, so I did want to address this as well. We are unsure of how events will run exactly in January and February because that's further out and we don't have a crystal ball as much as all of us could wish we could know what the future holds. But right now we can confidently say that we will definitely be offering one of these three options. So working closely with First is working on remote events and platforms for that and protocols and things we would have in place. So we do have the option to hold remote events, including judging and robot game. Again, there was a First press release on this, so check out First Inspires if you want to see more. We are still considering physical events for robot game. We do want teams to be in the least restrictive environment as possible. We know that so much of this program is hands-on, and it's about being there with the refs, and it's about having that experience. But we're only going to do this if we can safely deliver it and keep our coaches, our volunteers, our communities safe. The third option is a hybrid of the two, looking at what parts we might be able to make remote and what parts we might be able to make physical. Unfortunately, though, at this time, we can't say exactly which way we're going to go. We are meeting in the next few weeks to discuss our timelines, the logistics, what needs to happen, and we will be notifying all registered coaches through email when decisions are being made. We also will be updating things on our website, so just bear with us. I mean, flexibility is the name of the game here. I know we can get through this because we have such an innovative community. So right now we can confidently tell you that we're pushing the season back, but we're not exactly sure what those events will look like at this time. We just need more information and more time to figure that out. In the meantime, though, I know that coaches still need answers now. The next two slides I'm going to share, I wasn't planning on doing as much in this session, but I do feel like it's really important to at least give coaches and teams some time to start thinking and planning and asking questions and having conversations. So I want to encourage coaches, if you haven't had a chance already, I really want to encourage you to check out the Share and Learn Facebook group. Share and Learn is an online community focused on providing or really interested in STEM education and STEM robotics. They are closely associated with an FRC team, and they work a lot with First LEGO League coaches. Even being able to run a virtual tournament when the World Festival got canceled last year. So they have a Facebook group, which is a great place to share, get ideas, give ideas, just kind of see what's going on. So if you haven't joined their Facebook group yet, I would encourage that. Back in June, they also held a coaches brainstorming session. And essentially what they did was they took coaches and first representatives from around the country and basically pulled out some really tough questions. How do we run robot game? How do we do project? How do we do these things in a virtual environment? And if you haven't been able to check that out, there is a YouTube video of that session, and I've linked it here. But that session is an hour and 37 minutes. And so I know that everyone's time is valuable. So what I have done here is on this slide, I'm going to present to you just some of the key highlights that I took out from that session. Again, if you really want to hear the conversation and the thinking that went behind some of this, feel free to check it out. But if you don't want to sit through the hour and 37 minute long presentation, this might give you something to think about. And I do want to say this as a caveat before we start. All of these options have pros and cons to them. I'm definitely not advocating that one thing is better than the other, but I just want to start giving coaches ideas of things that they might be able to implement in order to make this work for them. So some teams are looking at maybe creating certain subgroups. One group works on project virtually, one group works on robot game. I know some coaches feel a little conflicted about this because some coaches do like to make sure that everybody gets to be a part of everything. But in unusual times, you might have certain kids that lean towards one part of the challenge while other kids lean towards other parts. So that's just something to take into account. Attached here, I have Lego sanitation tips. Some of the coaches talked about taking turns or shifts with who shows up for robot game practices or robots or attachments. Again, depending on where you're coming from and if it's a school or community organization, this might be tougher than you. Meeting in person might not be an option right now. So again, want to give you some more ideas. There are virtual simulators that you can try out. And again, we'll send out links to those. They're not ideal for practicing missions, but the whole point is to get kids coding, to get kids iterating, to get kids trying things. So a virtual simulator could be a way to get that work happening now in August as you figure out how this is going to roll in the next couple months. If money allows, many of the partners have gotten together and requested that teams be able to buy extra game kits. If money is an issue for your team or you're from an area that has issues with that doesn't really solve the problem. Hopefully the funding section of this will kind of help. But if money does allow, ordering another challenge kit might be able to separate some of the team members up a little bit. But again, this is not going to be doable for everybody. Some of the coaches on the team, they're thinking about allowing each team member to take a mission model home to build. I know as a former coach, that makes me pretty scared to think that pieces might not come back the way that I wanted them to, or things might go missing, or things might get put together incorrectly. But you know your team best, and you know if they'd be able to handle that. But in order to get kids' hands-on activities going, this could be an option for some teams. Some teams right now are looking to see if they can utilize extra robots. With many schools not meeting in session, robots may be just sitting there not being used. At my school, I know we had our own robot kit, but we also had other robot kits that were used in a STEM classroom. If those robot kits aren't being used now, you could potentially talk to school programs, after school programs, to see if maybe you can get some of these passed out to the team members. Again, these are just questions you have to ask and resources you have to look for, but something to consider as well. Certain parts of robot game can be done virtually, like mission strategy can be done virtually. So some of the pre-work before it could be done virtually while you're trying to figure out how can we navigate, what's the best way for us to meet in our region, what are parents comfortable with. So some of this can be done virtually. There are some CAD tools out there. I specifically note Bricklink here. The Share and Learn group recommended it as something that's constantly being updated. They've even added Spike Prime to it, the new robot. So if you're looking for CAD tools, there are some other ones out there, but this was highly recommended because of the fact that it's constantly being updated and it's still being maintained. There are remote desktop features offered through Google and other virtual programming environments that we're going to be linking in this presentation when we send it out. So you could have one kid sharing their screen and other kids talking about what's going on. Again, none of these are going to fix the problem, and not all of these options will work, but they're just some things to consider. If you really just want to get kids coding and continue to learn, think about going to some of the great tutorial resources out there like FLL tutorials, EV3 lessons, and Prime lessons. They already have a lot of great content posted, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Teams can still be researching even if they can't get hands-on with the robot every day, every practice. So look for ways that you can be innovative. And again, we are going to be taking some webinar sessions to dive deeper, but I just wanted to start to give coaches some thinking points that they could take back to their community. With Project Game, or excuse me, that was a typo, excuse me. With the Innovation Project, you could look at remote meetings for planning and research, virtual field trips. There's also sites out there that try to connect industry experts with the classroom. And when we say classroom, that also means homeschooling or small groups. You could look at sites like Nepris, which actually really does try to connect those industry leaders to there. We'll know more of what this looks like when the Innovation Project comes out. You could even create sub-teams that work on certain parts of the challenge and come back together. Team management is also going to be tricky. Think about Zoom breakout rooms. I attended a great session where a bunch of people were meeting together, but then we were all sent to smaller breakout rooms, and that could allow for smaller conversation to happen among certain sub-teams on your bigger team. A lot of the coaches talked about having a team contract, making sure that students and parents really understood how things were going to proceed, just to kind of get everything out on the table. You know, how do you communicate if the kid is not going to be at a practice, an online practice? Just certain things that help get some of the conversation going. There's lots of team building ideas as well. Coaches on this webinar mentioned Kahoot, having special themes for calls like today's practice is going to be a pirate theme or whatever. Gaming, where the teams can go in and game together, maybe using Flipgrid as a way where they could upload videos and be able to check out each other's videos. So you still want to keep that team aspect alive. There's a lot of parts of FIRST that aren't robot, game, and project. It's about the teamwork. It's about the friendships. It's about the coming together. So looking for ways that we can still honor that. Again, we're going to take deeper dives, but just wanted to give you some ideas. There are also other management tools like Trello, things like that might get you going. Again, I know this is a lot, but I'm just trying to give coaches something to kind of think about. We will stop for questions after this slide, but this will probably be helpful to a lot of people. If you are a veteran team, this is going to be an adjustment for you. All of the dates I'm about to show you are adjusted for COVID-19. So we're looking at May through January would be when you're working on your season challenge and getting registered. Again, challenge won't come out till August, so nobody's behind. But teams will be finding a workspace, setting up virtual meetings, working together on their robot game and their innovation project. Coaches also want to stay connected. They could join these webinars. They can join our listserv and our newsletter, which we will have linked in here before we send this out. September through December, you're going to want to be looking at your team manager account, getting your team signed up, entering team data. This step has to be done in order for you to register for any kind of event, remote, physical, whatever it is. December 1st through 10th, you will be submitting your team's top 10 tournament preferences. If we go all remote, this might look a little bit different, but that if we're still thinking of physical events, you'd be letting us know your top 4. Most teams do get their top picked. We have a few tournaments that are very popular, especially in the Northern Virginia area. So that is why we ask for your top 4 preferences. We try to place everybody as close to home as we can on a date they're okay with. But again, some events just fill up quicker. So it is on a first come, first serve basis, and you want to get that taken care of December 1st through December 10th. At December 10th, we'll cut it off and started making tournament assignments. So January through February is when you would be attending an official regional tournament. There is a separate fee for that. Again, we're still unsure of what that will look like, but we're really hoping to make these decisions coming up soon, and we'll be offering many webinars on what this will look like. So I know I just addressed a lot, but I do want to take a minute to unmute Christian and see if we have any questions coming in, Christian, that we might be able to tackle with what we just went over.
I think we're actually okay so far.
Awesome. And again, questions may pop up later. Not saying that we're going to have all the answers today. We're really going to dive deeper into these at different webinars, but we can at least take a look at some. So we're going to move on to team funding now. If you've ever run a team, you know that there's a couple of costs associated with starting your first LEGO League team. Every season, you will need to register your team. Again, I have prices listed here. This first registration, though, does not include a local tournament. You'll also want to order the challenge set. That's what the robot game is. That's the little missions that the kids will build and that their robot will then try to go out and complete. It's recommended that you don't have more than 4 teams per set, but you can have teams share if you're having one team coming on one day, one team coming on another. Again, we've got some LEGO sanitation tips for you, and we're going to be working on that. But you will want to order the replay challenge set. Regional tournament fees are set for $150. We are looking, if we go all remote, this might change, but we'll make that announcement when we know what events will look like. Teams will also want to buy their LEGO robot set. If you're a veteran team, you already have it, you're good to go. The current models being offered by LEGO right now are the LEGO EV3 Mindstorm and the LEGO Spike Prime. A little bit later in the session, I will talk about the difference between the two, but both of them work for gameplay. Both of them are great options. It just depends on what kind of team you have. If your team does advance to our championship event, that is another $150. And again, if we have to go all remote, we'll look at that. Some variables for teams to think about is a robot game table. This is not necessary. It's not required that you have a robot game table, but it is strongly recommended just to see what your robot does when it's actually on the table with the walls and everything. So we have in the presentation, we'll link the official robot game table making instructions from First. There's a lot of different ways teams have done it, but it's not required. T-shirts are something else, especially if there is a physical event that teams like to have. It's a great way to build team spirit. It's a great way to come together under one unit or one identity. I've even heard of a couple teams thinking about branded face masks for a physical event if we were to have them. So there's a lot of fun, and students really love having that T-shirt. And again, it's not mandatory or anything like that, but it really does make them feel like a team, and it makes them proud to go to a competition and really say, like, we are from wherever we're from. Other items you might want to think about are travel expenses, presentation supplies, poster, team snacks. Again, some of these items are donated. Some of them are built into school budgets. Some of them parents have no problem contributing. It really does depend on your team. So that's why we didn't tally up one final total, because it really does depend on the nature of your team and where you provide your funding from. We will have a PDF version of this budget for you, linked in the slides as well. So if you want to be able to print it out and take it to your team to decide, other coaches and parents, we'll have that as an available resource. So funding a team happens in many different ways. Some teams that are school-based, they use STEM funding, whether it be from a district or a state grant or support from their parent-teacher organization or parent-teacher associations, whatever they're called in your area. Some independently funded teams receive corporate or individual sponsors, and I will take a little bit more time to talk about that because that is where we get the most questions. Other teams will actually look for national and regional first specific grants that are meant to start First LEGO League teams. They're not just general STEM grants. They're specifically for First LEGO League. Well, we can show you where those are and where to look. And some teams actually get creative with their own fundraising, and they use it as a community outreach opportunity, which we'll talk more about. So teams that get their funding from a school, there's a lot of different ways that parents and teachers can ask about this funding. I know where I worked in Stanton, the school was able to use gifted and talented funding as a way to fund the team. Some schools, they have equity, diversity, and inclusion STEM initiatives in which they're looking for teams, and if your team is of a certain makeup, you might be able to find funding that way. There's many corporations and organizations that sponsor women in STEM initiatives. So if you've got a team primarily made of girls or females, you may want to look into that as well. A lot of other possible sources look for enrichment programs, things like that. So don't just think, where can I find money for a first Lego League team? Think about what initiatives tie into my team that I might be able to capitalize on. I know a lot of teams and parents have found funding through creative ways by just asking a few more questions. Sometimes there are STEM competition grants funded by the Virginia Department of Education. So what I would encourage you to do is check with your local STEM coordinator for those different grant opportunities. And last but not least, check with your PTO and your PTAs. I know at my school, teachers and parents just had to write up a simple proposal and they were able to receive funding that way. So there's lots of different ways from a school that you can check for funding. But again, asking the questions is the best place to start. These two next slides, I think, will be really interesting to some people who are not school-based, who are looking for to independently fund their teams. The first thing I want to encourage you to do is think about your connections already. What family do you have? What friends, what local businesses might be interested in sponsoring you, whether it be a corporation or an individual? There's a lot of different ways you can go about it. One note I will make about that is certain corporations are only able to sponsor tax-exempt nonprofit status teams. So this means teams that are tied to a 501c3. Now, as a first Lego League team, you could totally go ahead and set up a 501c3, but what I've heard in the field is that most teams feel like the legal costs behind setting up that 501c3 is not worth it to raise such a small amount of money. In some cases, setting up a 501c3 can cost, on average, $400. So there are some other ways that you can get around that if you have a corporation, but they say, we can only give to a nonprofit. If they will only give to a nonprofit, one idea would be to reach out to a friendly FRC team in your area. A lot of those FRC teams are associated with a 501c3, and they may be able to sponsor, they may be able to accept the sponsorship on behalf of your team. So if you've got that corporation that just has that one stipulation, potentially reach out to a FRC team that could help you out. Another great opportunity is to ask a booster club or a school PTA group. Many times these booster clubs or PTA groups already have a 501c3 status, and they're able to kind of accept the sponsorship, again, on your behalf, and then they're able to go in and take care of your costs. As the assistant director, I handle the team payments, and I do see this a lot where booster clubs or other PTA groups are paying for those teams' funding. So think about that, and that might be a really great possibility for you. Another way to do it is to get an independent donor, or even to use a corporation to go this way. This was something I was not aware of, but you are able as a team to receive donations through FIRST. Now, these donations can only be used for national registration, season challenges, and Lego products. Sorry about the dog barking in the background. Hopefully it's not too much of a distraction. But these funds can be used to take care of some of those costs that you would have to pay through FIRST. But the one thing is, it does have to be $99 or more in those donations. Why? There's some admin costs for FIRST that anything below $99, they really can't justify. But if you have someone's grandparent who wants to give $100 to the team, you're able to do that. How do you do that? They can send a check to the address here. And again, you'll have access to these slides afterwards. They'll need to put down your team number on the memo line. They can also go ahead and call FIRST using a credit card to their finance department. But the most important thing to know is that regardless of how they pay, they have to have your team number. And if you're a new team and you have a temporary team number, go ahead and give that to them. It can be your team number or your temporary team number, but FIRST will not be able to apply that payment to your team unless they have that number. They won't be able to look up a coach's name. They won't be able to look up a school. You've got to access it through the team line. But that was a funding source that I didn't realize. So that is something you can also direct people to do if they want to donate but would feel better giving to an actual nonprofit like FIRST. So another way that you can go around it. Some teams also look for national and regional FIRST specific grants. FIRST is always, every summer they're looking at handing out rookie grant opportunities. Usually these are released in May. I try my best to send this information out. Sometimes it's not given directly to me. So the best place to look is through First Inspires. There are also some other grants that they do in terms of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So if you feel like that may apply to you, please feel free to reach out to FIRST just to ask what are our grant opportunities. Also, we are launching our new website next week. And with that, we will have some awesome regional grant opportunities by some of our awesome sponsors, Amazon, Newport News, Shipbuilders, Collins Aerospace, and a few others. Some of these are regional, so you'll have to take a look at where you're located at. And they are offered at different times of the year, depending on the grant specification. But again, check our website next week, and you'll be able to see more of those grant opportunities there. And each grant is going to offer different things, so you'll just take a look at the description that we provide. But there are grants out there for teams to go out and get. And last but not least, teams do create their own fundraising plans. I know this can be a little weird in COVID. Some teams in the past have used bake sales and yard sales and other local fundraising opportunities to fund their team. With COVID-19, there are some challenges there for sure, but this is a great time to be innovative, and that is one thing I'm going to be looking into to try to help out teams is what are some virtual ways to be able to fundraise as well. Again, this gets tricky. Certain platforms are going to need it to be nonprofit, but we'll look for some basic ways that teams might be able to set up maybe a GoFundMe or something like that as a way to be able to reach out to their community. FIRST also does have a fundraising toolkit. There's a lot of helpful videos to show the kids to help get their ideas going. But be careful. A lot of these resources are targeted at FTC and FRC teams. So if you see something, a plan that seems way out of the monetary amount needed for an FLL team, you may be looking at a different kind of resource. So there are lots of ways to fund a team. I do want to stop here and check with Christian to see if there are any questions regarding funding.
So we don't have any regarding funding, but do you mind if I backtrack just a little bit?
Absolutely.
Okay. We did have one question come in for the new language for EV3 and whether or not it's going to be available on anything other than Macs. I don't know if you have the answer to that or what.
That is something I don't have the answer for, but I can easily reach out to FIRST and check with that. So we will get that sent out to hopefully by tomorrow, but I will check into that because I don't want to give the wrong answer on something like that. But I know that there have been some press releases about that, and I can check in with FIRST. So that is a good one to note. Thank you, Christian.
Sure. That's all I have. So.
All right. So now we want to get into FIRST registration. These parts will go pretty quickly, especially if you're a veteran coach. This is more for new coaches who haven't walked through the process, but veteran coaches, it could be a great way just to be able to remind yourself. And even afterwards, if you haven't registered yet, this could be a great opportunity like, oh, wait, what was she saying about that step? You can pull up these slides and have it all right there for you. So there is a two-tiered process with registration. First, you register with FIRST, which is the national registration. It's necessary, and then you register with us for an event. But with this first national registration, it will give you official team number. It will give you printed copies of the team meeting guide, robot game rulebook, and engineering notebook. Little secret, FIRST is working on digital copies of those because of COVID-19, but I will talk about that a little bit later on as well. It will give you the ability to register and compete in official FIRST events, which is what we do. And it will give you access to the FIRST storefront, but more importantly, by ordering Lego products through FIRST, you do get a discount that way. It's already built in. So you will see that some of the prices of the Lego products under your FIRST account will be different than what you see on Lego Education. So Lego Education and FIRST have an agreement set up. So this is a great way to get some discount off of your Lego robot sets. So when you go in, you'll either log in for the first time or you'll go back to your account. Again, that's firstinspires.org. When you get in there for the first time, you will need to just quickly sign their first terms and conditions, their code of conduct, their privacy policy. If you're a returning user, you might want to check your profile if you're new for the first time. They will ask you a few questions just because they want to know where you're located at, just some helpful things about you that if they need to reach out to you, they're able to. So once you've set up your account, this is your dashboard. This is what your dashboard looks like here. There is a place that parents and guardians can go to fill out consent and release forms. There's a way to volunteer. So there's lots of things you can do in here. You'll, as a coach, start with create a new team. If you are a returning coach, you'll see all of your teams listed here. Each team does need to be created individually, but coaches can manage several teams. For example, I'm a team admin for several teams, and when I look at my dashboard, I see all of my teams nicely listed here. I'm able to get in there and do all the things I need to pretty quickly, which is a nice feature. When you start a new team, you are going to have to pick a role. You can either be team admin, which allows you to help start the team, pay for the team, or you could be a lead coach. Teams do not need to have a team admin, but they must have a lead coach. So if you're not sure if you have a team admin, I would go ahead and say be the lead coach. A team admin is normally someone like a school principal or another parent or a STEM leader, somebody to help manage the team, but not actually be there for the day-to-day of the team. But teams do need to have a lead coach involved. So once you're in, then you will be asked to pick a program. First Lego League now is under one big umbrella with different divisions. So you might have seen First Lego League Junior before and then First Lego League. When you click on First Lego League, you'll then see and I'm sorry if this is a little blurry on your screen, but that you'll then see the different seasons. Look for the right age group. You are in First Lego League Challenge, the replay season. You'll pick that one, and then it will get you to where you need to go to. So you'll make a team profile, just a few things about your team, like what school they're from, where they're located at, are they associated with any organizations. They might ask the coach to update any profile information. Are they an alumni? Are they working for a certain company? You'll definitely need to know your shipping information and some basic information like address and phone number and website of the school, if it is a school organization. So moving on to ordering product. This is where you will order your challenge kit for the season. That's the robot game. This is where you can also order robots. And one thing I do want to specify here, the EV3 Lego, or the Lego EV3 Mindstorm was the product that's been used the most. It is the product you will see, as of right now, the most resources out, but it's not the only product. This is the first season that Spike Prime is able to be used in competition in Virginia and DC. One thing I do want to make clear is that Spike Prime is not intended to replace EV3. So I don't want coaches to think that, oh my gosh, I've got to go out and buy a Spike Prime now because that's going to give my team the upper hand. The purpose of the Spike Prime is to basically bridge the gap between what the First Lego League Junior, First Lego League Sport teams use, the Lego We Do, and the Lego Mindstorm. If you've ever worked with the Lego We Do and the Mindstorm, they're a big jump between the two. There's a big learning curve there. So what the Spike Prime is doing is trying to bridge that learning curve. If you are a teacher who only teaches second graders and you teach second graders every single year, you may want to go something more like a Spike Prime. But if you're a team that is starting with fourth graders and that those fourth graders are going to stay together all the way through eighth grade, you might want to go more towards an EV3 that's going to allow them to grow with the robot in terms of what the higher level programming and things like that you can do. But I do want to make it clear that one is not necessarily preferred in competition. They can do many of the same things just in different ways on the table. There also is a lot of awesome expert feedback on there. I would encourage you just to do a little bit of research as to what would work better for your team. But I do just want to reiterate the fact that one is not meant to replace the other. So this is where you can order that product. And again, you receive those discounts. Once you are ready to create your order, they will ask you again to confirm your shipping address. This drove me crazy at first because I didn't understand I needed to check that box. They just want to make sure that they know where you're shipping to. Some schools, they don't have a teacher there over the summer. So you might want to think about where will this be going to. And then you can either create an invoice to print out and give to your organization or school admin or whoever's paying for this, or you can go to checkout. Now, in checkout, this is where you have to have your sales tax information. You will not be able to check out and purchase your product if you don't have this and you want to have that sales tax exemption. They will not refund it. So if you have it, this is where you need to have it. This sometimes frustrates coaches because they think they're ready to put their order in and then they realize they need one more form. So please make sure if you're a school or an organization that is not going to pay for taxes, this is a document that you have to be ready to go. Sometimes it can take a day or two for those to get approved. Normally, First is really good about getting that information out there pretty quickly and getting it approved. But this is something now in the summer, you can be checking with bookkeepers, you can be checking with different people. If you're going to work with an FRC team or a PTA, you will definitely want to get this information because once the tax has been paid for, it cannot be refunded. And just call First if you have any questions about that, but just something important to note for teams who are trying to get the tax exemption. Then when you get to your order, you'll review your cost, you'll look at tax, you can print receipts here. Orders cannot be placed until payment's made. So you can't replace, or you can't get anything for the season until you've paid for it. So again, that's why it's a good idea over the summer now to be looking some of those things. So when you have your team together, you have your materials and you're ready to hit the ground running. One thing that a lot of coaches did reach out to me about, and I did take this feedback to First, First has decided this year to stick with their non-refundable policy. I know that might make teams a little uneasy in ordering right now, but I did want to be clear and transparent with all coaches and teams that First has decided to keep that policy the same. Again, we will keep giving them that feedback that I've heard from coaches, but I did want to be transparent. And for this last section, the dashboard is a really helpful place within your First Inspires account to be able to change your team name or other profile details. You'll actually be able to order and track your products. Sometimes I get emails of coaches asking me to do that, and I can't see your tracking information. So this is a good place to see, all right, where is our challenge kit? Where are our materials? We're waiting to get started. This is where you would want to check. You can look at your finance options. If you're getting grants or if people are giving donations through First, that's where you would see it. You can manage your team contacts and rosters. You can invite mentors and youth team members through this dashboard. So it's a really helpful place to go when you're getting started. The last thing I want to leave off with on national registration is that we at Virginia DC First Lego League don't have any control over it. When teams call me asking about First registration, I actually call the same exact number that teams do in terms of figuring that out. So it might just be faster for you to reach out that way. I'd be happy to help, but again, I call the same numbers that you would be doing. So if you don't want to wait to hear back from me, you can always reach out directly. So Christian, do we have any questions? It can be about COVID, about funding, about team registration.
So I'm actually going to go back to the robots because this is actually a pretty good question. I don't know that I have the answer.
Okay.
This is from Beth. She was asking if teams could use different robots in the different rounds of the competition game. So could they use an EV3 in one round and a Spike Prime in a different round?
That is a great question, Beth. And this is one reason why I'm really happy that we have the First Lego League global head ref, Steve Scher, on our side. From my knowledge, I will say I definitely know that you can only bring one robot to the table, which it sounds like Beth understands that only during one match. But I think now that we're working with different robots, I think that's very interesting question to present. Can you switch up which robot does each round? So I don't want to make up the answer for him, but Beth, I promise we'll get back to you because I'm sure you're not the only coach thinking about that. And that's something I wouldn't have even thought about, but something really good to clarify now. So Beth, I'll reach out with Steve's answer, and I will publish that too with these slides because I think that I wouldn't have thought about that. So I'm really happy we're holding sessions like this.
And then that's all I have.
All right. So we have about 10 more minutes. In this last section, I do just want to talk about event registration. I know that right now we don't know what our events look like exactly, but I did just want to introduce the fact that Christian and I have been working really closely with an amazing small software company named Cloverbyte, located in the Northern Virginia area, to develop a new registration system. Some things will remain the same as in the past, and I'm hoping to use this webinar as a way to talk about why we do things that way. But we do have some new features that I'm hoping will make it even more user-friendly for people. Just as a side note, we won't be opening our regional registration until August 15th. We want to make sure, we're hoping to get a couple more answers for people, but we want to make sure that everything is working correctly, it's ready to go, so that way we have the best user experience possible. So again, when you've registered with First and you've got your official team number, then you're starting to think about that culminating experience. How are we going to celebrate the hard work of our teams? And one note I will make here, regardless of if we do all remote or hybrid or whatever, our goal is to maintain that same level of excitement as much as we can, teams being able to work together. And we've been brainstorming as a team how we'll make that happen. And we're really excited to get ideas from the community as well. So even though event registration seems far off, I did want to take this as a time to kind of go over our new system. In our new system, you'll either sign up or log in. For the first time signing up, logging in, but it will look like this. So if you're not going to register for another month, you can at least come to this webinar and say, what does this look like again? Am I in the right space? And boom, you have screenshots. Okay, I know I'm in the right space. Once you've made your account, you'll want to set up a team profile. What's great in our system, teams are able to manage multiple teams at one time. So if you are a coach that has multiple teams, they can all be in here as well, and you'll be able to manage them no problem. So with adding a new team, you'll just need some basic information. If you don't have a team name yet, we're happy with to be determined or whatever you may go with. But a team name really does give a team identity. So we're hoping that you guys can brainstorm some really awesome ones. We know our region has some insane names. I'm going to shout out the Magically Energized Lightning Waffle Bunnies. I hope I got that right. But get creative with it. It really should be a fun team thing. We'll need your team number, city, state, institution type. Are you a school? Are you a community organization? In this as well, you are able to add an assistant coach. This is a new feature that we have not had before. You will be able to invite an assistant coach who will be able to help you enter team member data, pick tournament selections. So it's not just on one person anymore. You and your assistant coach will be able to manage your teams from one place, which is something our old system did not allow teams to do. Once you got your team profile set up, you'll want to enter your member data. So you can see here on the screenshot, there's basically where your teams are located and where all your members are located at. Basically, when you enter a new member, you will be assigning them to a team. So that's why you have to set your teams first, and then you'll say, okay, they're on this team, they're on this team. We do ask for a couple of pieces of information, and I'll talk about why in a second. Notice that not all of them are mandatory, and you do have the option to opt out of them, but some of them we do need in order to be able to assign your team to a tournament. So the reason why we ask for the information like birth date and things like that is it allows us to deliver a quality program, including our division system, which we'll talk more about in webinars. But our division system does allow us to give more opportunities to all levels of teams. Instead of having just our 7th and 8th grade veteran teams dominate, we really do like to see teams from all levels of play being acknowledged for their hard work and their achievements. This also allows us to evaluate some of our goals, our inclusion, diversity, and equity, as well as secure funding for underrepresented groups in STEM. So by collecting some of this information, we actually are able to help tournaments and regions and areas write grants that can get them more funding and get this program into the hands of more people. One thing to note, we do not sell or release this information to any third party. We keep it very closely secured. So please just know that when you do give this to us, we respect it and we protect it and we take care of it. Also, it's important to know that you will not be able to select your tournament preferences unless you have 2 or more team members. It literally, in the system, will not let you sign up. And this is something that people get really frustrated about. They're like, well, I didn't know I have to have this. That's why you sit on the webinar. That's why you take a look at it beforehand. you have to have 2 people on a team in order to be a team. So you should have this information already. So just be thinking about that now. So assistant coaches can also help enter team member data. This was something you couldn't do before. So if you have an assistant coach and you're too busy, you can also have them enter data for you. If one person wants to take one team or split up your work, but they are able to help with entering that member data beforehand. Again, entering this data should be done before December 1st. That way, when we open up the tournament selection process, the tournament preference selection process, you're able to select your tournament preferences right away and hopefully get the event that you were hoping for. So again, this isn't happening till December, but I know I forget things all the time. Might as well just get it done as soon as you can. So September, October, November, definitely think about getting those things in there. With making an event payment, there is a lot of uncertainty surrounding the season. Right now, our payment is at $150. If we move to all remote events, we may be changing that. So instead of collecting something and then giving it back to you, we have not opened up our payment yet, and we will probably not do that exactly on August 15th. We'll update registered coaches when it's ready to go. Payment won't be ready or due until December 1st, so you have a lot of time to get it together. And I promise we'll be coming out with this, but I don't want to mess with people's money, and I want to make sure teams have a clear idea of what they are paying for. So before I ask teams to start paying, I want to make sure we know what kind of experience we're going to offer them. So while it may be a little annoying, we're just trying to be responsible and transparent with some of the changes that we're going to have to make this season. So December 1st comes around and you're ready to select your tournament preferences. I will say this, our regional tournament coordinator, Karen Berger, is amazing, and she does a great job of crunching the numbers. Most teams in the Virginia and DC area do get their first tournament preference. We just have a lot of very popular tournaments up in the Northern Virginia area. So we want to make sure that we get people where they need to go to. Karen will have conversations with people, but by giving us your tournament preferences, we're able to get you to the closest event on the right date. But again, it's important that you let us know. So right now you'll see some sample tournaments in here. Obviously, Neptune, Mars, Earth, Saturn, and Pluto, whatever are not our tournaments. But basically, all you have to do is drag over your tournament selections in order of preference. So Neptune would be my first preference. Earth would be my second. Going to Neptune right now sounds great. I know it's not livable, but Earth is what it is right now. Saturn, then Pluto. You'll be able to see them here. And when you hit save, that's when the timestamp comes on. Why is the timestamp important? Because that is what we use in order to know, okay, they registered. These were the first teams to register for this event. So it's important to take a look at this beforehand, know what you're looking for in order to be able to put that in there. What's also really nice is you'll be able to review your tournament preferences. When you hover over this check mark, the double check mark means you're good to go. Neptune, you can see your order. You can see exactly what time you made that with the timestamp. So it's all nicely right there for you. Then after we've closed out the tournament preference selection period after December 10th, Karen will start to do her magic and assign teams. And one thing that was might have been different from the last section, it might not have been as easy to find. You will see your final tournament posted here, but we will also post it on our website as well. So some things are the same, but we're hoping that this is a better user experience, that things are nicely laid out. I will note you can also download your team data. You can download files just to be able to have. So there's a lot of features in here that we didn't have before that I'm excited about. So, Christian, any questions on anything else that's come up?
No, we're good.
Awesome. I had a feeling this is our first one going in. We're still in the summer, but I really appreciate everyone being here as we test this new platform out in terms of giving webinars. So we do have 2 new webinars, and this is where we're really going to take a deeper dive. Again, the season challenge is coming out on August 4th, so within the next week, we'll have so many more details about what this will look like. So on August 11th, we'll be holding a Core Values and Innovation Project webinar. Not only will we be looking at what these look like in the season, but we'll also be adding lots of tangible tips and tricks for COVID-19. Having a better idea of what we're getting into, we'll have more information on how schools are opening in the fall. So hopefully by that webinar, we're able to give you even more details on how you can make this work with your team. And then Tuesday, August 25th, we are hoping to get a lot more season updates out there and really do some deep diving into what COVID-19 is going to look like for teams. Luckily, since we pushed our competition season out to January, February, we've got a little bit more time to get started. So we're really looking at that August 25th date as being a day where we can really do some brainstorming, hear from people in the community, what are problems they're facing, what are innovative solutions they've come up with, different things like that. So we're really hoping to gather a big pool of knowledge for our coaches and our teams to help them have a successful season. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want for our students, pandemic or no pandemic. We want them to have these successful STEM and STEAM experiences and opportunities. So again, after the session tonight, we will be sending out the recording. We'll be sending out the slides with all the links. We'll be sending out the links to register for the webinars, and we'll be addressing any questions, like some of the great ones we've gotten tonight that we weren't able to get to. So with that, it is 8:01, and I'd like to respect everybody's time and allow everyone to go continue with their evening. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Thank you for the dedication and passion that you give every day, and whether or not this is your job or this is a volunteer position, we very much appreciate you and could not do it without you. Thank you, Christian, again for moderating questions, and we will see everybody next time. Have a great evening.